Here's what I want to do for the afternoon. We talked and it surfaced, the issue about, so what are some of the tools we need and how is it that I start to move forward and get through this thing that I feel either stuck as an organization or as a woman. And so that's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, because I said there has to be a way in which I can help by putting on paper what's been true in my experience as a strategic facilitator. Things I see in real life that go, oof, oh, that's it? That's it. And so today we're going to talk and explore what I call the 9 gender issues that keep us pretty much stuck. Here's what's really interesting. An overview of this chapter was offered last year when I was doing some of my book tour here in Prague. And then that's how I met Peter. He saw part of this presentation. And that was for him a switch. There's a slide that was sort of like the one in which he said, oh, I get it. There were other men in the room who said, I wish I would have heard this advice before. For my professional career, it might have been different. So what I'm suggesting also is part of what you want to take back, and what I know to be true, is this is applicable for everyone. But there's a bit of a patina here that really is unique to women, and that's what we need to explore so we can really understand how we best communicate across the aisle with anyone, anywhere, all times, okay? So we're gonna have a lot of fun as we go forward. Please ask. If I feel I want to finish up a question, I'm gonna ask you to hold it, and then I'll open up for QA. Does that make sense? Are we ready to have fun? So we're here because either I want to know more or I want to be a better manager, right? And so let's talk very quickly about what I call present state in Europe. In Europe. I'm sorry, yes?
I'm just saying slow down a little bit. You're a bit excited.
Can't help it. Greater number of women in higher education, Europe. Lack of presence of women at all levels. And by the way, this is an overarching story anyway, but it's happening in Europe as well. Europe wants to compete in the global economy. Population in Europe is aging. And here's what's really, one of the things that's really starting to get me a big concern is this whole issue about replacement. And there was the 5 Trends, McKinsey has a quarterly report, and it came out 3 weeks ago, and one of the 5 was this issue, which I also mentioned in the book, because I was looking at data and saying that it's very interesting that industrialized countries are showing either very little or a decline. And that trend is really dangerous for many reasons. 1, for companies, for where are they going to find replacement? 2, for countries, so who's going to lead the economy going forward, the economic growth? And most importantly, as a manager or owner of a company, I therefore need to unequivocally retain the talent I have, especially the female talent. And by the way, offer these women, and now the young men, a more flexible work environment, which is that Microsoft is being nice, but it's not that they're really just, so wonderful nice, like every other company. They're nice, and they also understand they have a business proposition to fulfill, and that is, I need to understand how to best keep the talent I have. And so as a consequence, I need to create flexibility. Because if I put women in that place in which you cannot have a child because you have to work since the conditions in front of you are so absolute, it's not a good thing. Does that make sense? All right, so here you go. A significant underrepresentation of men will arise in the group of higher educated people in the future. So there's going to be a propensity of more women and a decline of men. Women have now clearly overtaken men in completing tertiary education. While the proportion was similar in 2000, the increase for women about doubled the increase for men. 15.8 percentage points for women compared to 8.6 percentage points for men. Male employment rate is 21% higher than women. Women earn 25% less than average. Women are forced to choose between family and profession, zero-sum game, which is what we were explaining. And in Europe, there will be a drop of 24 million in active workforce by the year 2036. That's around the corner, if female employment rate does not change. So Europe will need 24 million people employed to keep the engine going. And if we don't do something smart soon, we're not going to be able to have that talent available. Europe as a whole is and will lose its ROI, return on their investment in women education. So they will educate you, and then they're never going to have the opportunity to reap the rewards of your education. So why go back to this issue of gender, right? And so just to make it easier for us to go fast track into where we have to go, let's talk about the elephant. So there are cultural norms that come up. There are biases and stereotypes that come with us. It's so very much part of our human condition. That place is, what am I supposed to do? Do I emulate the behavior of the people around me, those being men, and therefore erode or lose my authenticity? It's never worked for women. And what are the expectations at work for me to be strong and resourceful and outspoken and assertive and not get a backlash, or be quite cooperative and just nice and also be ignored? So it's almost like, what do I have to do? So we've operated on the assumption that if I sort of emulate the behavior that surrounds me, that strong behavior that typically gets things done, then things should happen. And we tried it with some degree of success. At the end of the day, it sort of doesn't work, and we'll see why. There is a reason for that. But do we agree so far? This came out 3 weeks ago. And I said, that's wonderful. So it's going to help me condense this story. So why the power of unconscious bias is persistent? That's a consequence. That's in the core of this conversation. It's not going to go away. And the research is around transgender, right? So, and that's an interesting scenario, because it's the same person with a different name, sex, correct? And he's a professor in Stanford. And so Ben Bears is a biologist at Stanford who used to be Barbara Bears. When he became Ben, he noticed a difference immediately. More respect, more attention, less interruptions. He heard in one of his speeches in a lecture, his work is much better than his sister's. It's the same person. One is Ben, the other one is Barbara. That's in the core of the conversation we're having today, right? The other one, some of you have seen this one already, is Heidi Rosen. And so it's a case study about a woman that's very, very good at networking. So Harvard archived her story and said, look what happens when you network. Professor in Stanford said, let me take this and see if this thing about what's in the name makes any sense. And so he said, let me divide my class in two sections, class A and class B, section A and B. And the two of them will evaluate this person terms of competency, likability, and efficiency. Same case study. The only difference was one was called Haiti, which is a real person, and the other one Howard. And so he went off and said, Reed, come back, and tell me if you find them competent, if you find them effective, if you find them aggressive. And then here's where it starts to come up. She's aggressive, but he's assertive. And here's the bingo. Would you like her and work with her? Don't like her, will work with him, will not work for her. Exactly the same scenario. The only difference was the name. Okay. So, let's go into the root cause, and then if we think it through, and we're able to sort of start to figure out what's in the way, then we're more effective and we're more efficient as to how I present myself, offer advice, present myself in terms of asking for completely new things, self-advocacy, and many other good things. So let's go into what will be root causes, the socialization process, which you're going to get into now, physiology, culture. All right, let's ask in the room. How are girls, let's just check girls, raised here in the Czech Republic? Give me something about the girls.
About the girls?
The girls. Do they play with dolls or other girls?
Of course, and one interesting point is that they have to have earrings immediately from they are born. So being marked, they are girls. And my daughter didn't have, and they, even if she has pink sweater, they call her boy.
So from the very beginning, we have to tell earrings, and they play amongst themselves, dolls?
Yes.
Okay, what else? What else about girls? Or raising girls? So they sort of, they play soccer, don't they? A little bit? Not some of them. Okay, not that much. So they have this propensity. Let me ask you if it's true. They're supposed to be nice? Yeah. Are they supposed to share their dolls? So do you remember that moment in which you had your doll in your hand? And your mother came in, and your friend wanted the doll? And you said, no. And then your mother said what? Be nice and share? By the way, that's the first moment in which you learn to erode power. The first time mom said, give it away, you started to give it away. So you said, here, be nice. And you did not want to. I wanted to keep my doll. Yes?
But I try to teach this to my son as well, so I don't think it's
yeah, well, let me tell you one thing, and that's a very important point. These are overarching general scenarios. Don't take this to you. So many of you are, yes, raising kids differently. But I'll tell you, your boy or your girl will be surrounded by children who are going to be raised this way. And you work with adults that were raised this way. And this is this is for you, okay? Humble? Yes? No? Conflict. Don't fight. Nice girls don't fight. True or false? In general, right? The US, it's the same thing. In Latin cultures, same thing. It's you prevent yourself, or you shy yourself from conflicts. It's just not ladylike. Softer demeanor. You're acting too loud, your voice is too high. In some cases, you're laughing too loud. Quiet down. So that's part of the overall socialization process. Agreed? All right. Let's look at what happens with boys. Boys, how are they raised?
Compete.
Oh, they do? Yours too? Yeah? Strong? They don't cry? Don't cry. And if you're, hold it. Are you allowed to be loud? Of course you are, for God's sake. And I'll show you more. We sort of expect for you to win. And it's a good thing that you have that little thing going on. Oh, I want to go. Boastful. Mom, I kept, and look what I did. Dunga, dunga, dunga. Wow. Right? Yeah.
And is it really talking about the current generation or about the one that is not in management?
There we go. And they have this pecking order to fight for the top. Yeah? Fight for your place, which is going to imply it's easy for them to deal with conflict. So, it's no wonder, and this is 3 years ago, that we still have pretty like mom, so pretty, the earring, and smart like dad. And they had to pull the t-shirts out, but it was funny, some parents actually did buy them, but they realized, oops. Here's what's really significant, and it's very disconcerting to me, and it continues to be a trend. The educational experience. This is 2013, and I have research for you from Europe as well. The study found that in spite of standardized testing, high school math teachers consistently overrated the math abilities of white males while consistently underrating the ability of white girls and minority students of both genders. These findings held even after the study's author accounted for race, whether the students went to private or public school. Teachers are setting up this girl-boy thing. Europe. Besides the relationship with peers, the second factor that forms the gender identity is a differentiated attitudes and expectation of teachers towards their children, male and female children. In this case as well, the teacher's expectations coincide with the border of gender division at subjects mentioned previously. As an example, if a girl gets a high credit on one of the masculine subjects, this achievement of hers will be attributed not to her talent, which is completely normal to have, but to her hard work and diligence, whereas the failure of a boy in the very same subject, while explained, it will be explained by the following phrase: he's talented, but he's lazy.
What was gender of these teachers?
Men and women. The problem we have is that teachers, both male and female teachers, do the same thing to boys. So women do the same thing. Yes, that's a problem. And that's a research that's coming out loud and clear. So there is a part that has to be a huge intervention in education. Absolutely. So physiology is the other factor, right, that we need to think about. And what I'm doing here is setting up the discourse for us to go into the 9 gender issues that keep us away, so we know why they keep us away. Where do they come from? Well, they come from the social experience. They come from physiological realities. And that is that we do have a different brain. And if you haven't read the book, and I'm sure some of you have because I've been talking about this book, it's a phenomenal book, is a female brain. She wrote the female brain first, and then she wrote the male brain second. For the men in the room, forgive me. So a friend of hers told her, oh, that second book is going to be very short. Neural blood flows patterns are different. Females have more neural activity in parts that think in and create words and connections to memories and emotions and sensory cues. Men in the room, this is why your wife, your girlfriend, will never forget that day you forgot the chocolates 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Does that have ever happened to you? And you say you forgot about it, and there she's telling you, you remember that day? And you're saying, what day? The day in which you forgot. He's smiling. Did it happen to you? It happens to, yep. And well, we have this thing about memory, which is really, really one of our shortcomings, because we bring this definitely to work, and we lose a lot of good energy in remembering what happened. And that's one of the things we do in our work, help women understand, drop it, and let's move along. You have to reprogram that piece of your behavior. Men have more neuroactivity in parts that are used for physical and kinesthetic intelligence, spatial mechanics, and abstraction. So it's very easy, much easier for them to go into that place of spatial design. So that's why the word collaboration is key. And that's why when we think of innovation, this is important, because the brains complement each other. The functionality of the brain, when put together, is excellent. It's extraordinary. Gray and white matter. Women have more white matter and men have more gray matter. And that means that there's a reason why problem solving is different. And women make connections against disparate elements, while men tend to do more of a task focused on one element. Again, this is why men have the propensity for that quick decision, and women start to say, let's think it through a little bit more. Again, I have to go through this very lightly, just to give you context. We have an hour and a half, but I invite you to read the books, because it's a phenomenal read for you to really get a good in-depth understanding of how the brains work. It's golden, because then you're much more prepared to have good conversations. Here we go. Look at the difference. And so now we have the science that shows us how they are different and how they work differently. The male brain shuts often, many times during the day, but the female brain does not shut down in the same way. Here's a very important piece. Have you ever gone to your boss' office, if it's a man, and sometimes found, and he's almost like in a shutdown mode, and you're like all fired up, and he's looking at you like, why are you all so fired up? And why are you so relaxed? And there's part of personality that's going on, but men have a capacity to go up, down, in terms of the way in which the brain activity works. Our brain works in such a way in which we're always in hyper mode. It's always in action. And so that's why we need to understand how we need to decompress. For men, when they have the downtime, are able to recalibrate, and this is organic, this is physiological, and we need to understand, we need to be alert to that, right? The results are men and women have different approaches to paying attention. Sometimes you're in a meeting and you're looking at, and have you ever felt, is he really looking and keeping track? Has it happened? And you go, are we here? Are we here? And he's like, glossy. It's part of the physiological, it could be also that he's gone. But that could be too. So we have to be smart about the difference. We have a propensity to complete tasks differently. And again, Marqueta was talking about how she was able to shorten the time. So there was the startup with a highly degree of male energy going on there, and then the young women would come in and go, boop. So task completion was complemented in such a way in which they condensed the time to the benefit of everybody, right? And again, the distraction. Now, and we'll share, but I want to make sure I explain this to the women in the room. Distressing is paramount, and for the women in the room, distressing happens more organically by befriending. That's why when we get out of home, out of our house, we typically do what? What do we do? Call who? A friend? Right after in the car, right? Hey, this is what happened today. And then you go, da, 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 da. And then you go home and you tell your husband, you know what, Jonathan, and your husband is sitting there in the U.S. watching maybe football. And he's like, uh-huh, yes, uh-huh. And are you paying attention to me? Yes, uh-huh. All right. And I'll also show you what that means in terms of sound. We need to be smart to allow ourselves to do that. Decompress and befriend. In that moment in which I'm befriending, I am alleviating stress. Don't think that toughing it through, keeping it all for yourself, is going to be any benefit to you. Let it go. Because your brain and your physiology really needs that. It's the way we are built. The way we converse, and I'm going to get into more details shortly, but definitely if our brain activity is different, and I'm pretty much more lineal and you're a little bit more all over the place, one of the two have to move a little bit to the ground, to the center, and say, well, I'm going to have to be quicker, shorter, more accurate with the words I use, to the point. And you're going to have to be a little bit more patient and allow for maybe 2 or 3 more questions for maybe the third question that she asks it's gold. So let me self-regulate and listen to her for a little bit longer. And here's one of the things that I think is for me so important. And so I'm so delighted today was such part of the conversation. Yes, we're different, and that's a good thing. And that's a very good thing. And that thing about I am like a man or I'm equal to a man, I think the word equal was poorly chosen. I wanted to be treated fairly like a man. But I'll never be like a man, for I'm not a man. I'm very much a woman with everything I bring, and with a very strong voice of authenticity. That's the only place of strength, okay? Let's go into the 9 gender issues. And what I will try to do is go through, and if you want to have a break, we'll have a break. Just, if you want to keep going, we'll do. How many of you have heard of a double bind? Go ahead. What's a double bind?
That women are often judged for the same behaviors as men. So, like you showed the example of a woman being called aggressive, where a man is called assertive.
And what does that imply for women?
They can't win. If they try to behave like their male colleagues, they aren't judged the same way. And if they don't behave like their male colleagues, they're dismissed.
That sucks. That's horrible. True? Yeah. If I'm too assertive and strong, then I'm not feminine. But remember what the girls were told? What were the girls told? Excuse me? Be nice. What else? Share. Are you supposed to be spouseful and speak up? No. But now I'm in the world in a new arena, and there's a different expectation. So when I am too assertive and strong, the boys are saying, you're breaking a mold, and I don't understand they're men now. Girls are not supposed to be that way, right? Because the boys are saying we're supposed to behave one way, girls are supposed to behave one way. Women are not supposed to be assertive. Aggressive. Because the assertive part is where we want to take them. But we're perceived as aggressive. Because we're breaking a mold. Suspicious. So you see a man observing women who is maybe too much or too strong, according to the perception they might have. They say, I'm not sure she's a team player. I'm not sure she's going to be the talent that I should spend time grooming, because I think she's out for herself. She's doing too much of her own thing, too boastful, too full of herself. So I'm not sure that I'm going to be her sponsor. But if she then is too aggressive and pushy, difficult to work with, too passionate, abrasive, we don't win, correct? Have any of you gone through any of this experience? Okay. So, what
I actually have become aware that I have progressed because I've exhibited male characteristics. And so I thought I'd play with it a bit at a meeting. I was the only woman in the meeting. And I basically adopted male behaviour to be heard. So afterwards, my line manager got feedback that I was aggressive and arrogant. And I spoke to somebody else in that meeting and said, how did I come across? Oh, you were very professional, you had a point to make and you made it. So it was very interesting, and this has sort of shaped how my line manager is looking at me now. And that was just one situation. So, I've been in that business for a long time, I've attended many meetings, and never had that feedback before. So it was just, quite interesting.
Okay, so anybody else wants to share? All right. Be that way. So for managers in the room, please revisit your leadership training. More to come, but one of the things we're finding is that there's been a propensity to train men and women using the same type of design. And you're missing the boat. You're missing the capacity to really help men and women really understand leadership from the inside out. Because unless I understand what is happening in my behavior, I can't lead or influence with authenticity. And that implies I need to understand how is it that my chemistry, my social upbringing, my sociological experience is going to play out. And if I understand, so when I walk into the room, the dynamics, the potential dynamics here, then I can calibrate my behavior, not change who I am. Calibrate so much so that allows me to have the impact that I need without leaving behind who I am, which is a woman and happy to be one. Create an environment for learning and exploring how companies who overcome this blind spot perform better. So, business case. This is really very important. This is for managers. There are thousands of pieces of wonderful, wonderful research that could be found that would adapt to your own corporate cultures. Expose them to the data. The way to go is to acknowledge and understand how men and women differ. So when we're dealing with the double bind, this thing about she's too assertive or too abrasive, this is some of how it works in the room. Sarah Jane, you were too aggressive. You just saw this one and said, you know what? Yes, you're right. According to that thing called filter that we carry, we all do, you had to perceive my behavior as aggressive. Most likely, many other people might have said strong or assertive, but I get it. How do we create a moment here in which you understand that I'm just trying to bring out a point? How do we work it through? Well, I don't know, maybe. And then that maybe is that moment for you to explore with him how you help him understand this is what's going on. It's going to be default behavior, by the way. Bias is going to always operate. I'm always going to fall into that which I know. And what I know is what I learn. And what I learned is what I was taught when I was a little girl and a little boy. So you have to remember, we don't divest ourselves from the social experience when we walk through the door Monday morning at work. It comes with me. The little girl comes with me, the teenager comes with me, the adult comes with me, and so does this truth for everybody else. So if we're a little bit smart, we can reshift the approach, and it's one of the moments. I had a KPMG in the room. It was over at KPMG, and it's a young girl. And she said, okay, we left the training with you. I went out, sent an email, asked my partner, director, for a meeting. I wanted to do a couple of things. One, to make sure he understood I was really committed to a long-term place here in KPMG. And I had a couple of ideas I wanted to share with him, and I wanted to have the opportunity to have a face-to-face. She said I would have never done this if we had not gone through the morning session. And she said, to my surprise, not only is he giving him time, he's volunteering to be my mentor. And the shift that happened, she said, is he sort of gets now that it's passion. And I'm interested and committed, right? You want to say something?
I just wanted to say that what this does, I like this, it depersonalizes it, because quite often it becomes a personal clash when actually it's not personal. It's not directed at you. It's just two people operating with different perceptions.
Voila.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make the whole thing different? So it takes you in a place in which you're saying, he or she, because we're going to talk about gender, women to women, but it's not malicious. This is human condition operating. And I know something now a little bit different that can help me move this thing forward so that we can collaborate, right? How many of you have been in a meeting and said something? Nothing happens. And then the man next to you says something, and people jump at it. How many of you? Are the men in the room looking at what happened here? Yeah. And then what's happened after that? You walk out of the meeting, and what do you say?
They didn't really want to hear what I had to say.
What else? What else?
I actually called it to their attention the last time it happened.
Oh, but because you become smart, haven't you? Yes. But before, what would you say?
No.
No. What else? What else?
Actually, what happens to me a lot is that I say something and then it's actually attributed that my boss said it. That
Somebody else did it.
But
it's yours. All right. We're bringing it right back home. All right. Now, there are two things I'm going to break this up in terms of communication, and that's just even voice sound and the way we do it, right? By the way, I want to remind you, it's going to come up, but I want to remind you, and this is so very important. When you take 100% of the communication process, 93% is nonverbal. May I repeat? 93% is what walks into the room without a spoken word. Demeanor, posture, body language, tempo in which you walk, voice, the tone of voice, all that is telling me something immediately. And then 7% is what you say. Research shows there is a communication gender bias. Men enjoy a favorable bias. This is everywhere now. We're finding men have more credence. And again, it's because of this social issue that started when we were very young. Overall, their work and voice is perceived as more competent. Women communication process blends more towards collaborative. We are all in this together. Men use communication process to assert power, gain prestige, and position. We really use communication to enhance the collaborative process. Ultimately, we have this propensity to want to do that. There was a question in the room. You had a question or a comment?
Out of this, one of the experiences I had was at the leadership meeting. The men coach was having the open discussion, and it was another partner from the top firm that was trying to raise her hand, and he ignored her. And I was kind of looking at her and both of them, and she looked at me like, what do I do next? Do I stand up? And literally, she stood up. There was only 10 people in the room, and he still took the guy 30 seconds to stop and ask her the question. So I'm just saying that even if you try to do the nice things, you might have to just stand up and say, can I speak now? And she was a partner in the company, and she said it happens a lot. So I'm just saying it's not, I didn't have to do anything. I'm just watching and I share.
I think it has to be related to brain because...
Excuse me, please, can we use the microphone?
Yes, of course.
In a way, it happens.
It happens also in private life, like when I propose something at home to my boyfriend, he doesn't hear it, and after 5 minutes he says the same thing, and it's obvious that he never heard what I said.
Yes.
He just thinks he has this wonderful proposal, you know.
Yes.
And there's just no way I could explain to him that I just said it 5 minutes ago to you in one-to-one conversation, which is really funny.
Well, there's a reason for this.
The gentleman was trying to promote the new leadership and the emotional connection and how much women were much better in business. So he was sharing all this for an hour of communication, and then he ignored what he just said.
But you know what? Here's what's very important. There's no malice. There's ignorance. So it's like we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. You see, and this is all information that's come up in the last 10 years that we have the research. We sort of knew, but we weren't sure. We have the data. And part of the reason you'll see why he figured it out in delayed result, we'll see shortly. But the men in the study had a harder time deciphering them and really hearing what women were saying. When they heard the female voice, this is important, they had to decipher them using the part of the brain that processes music. A more complex process that is used in the part of the brain that analyzes a male voice. There's something about our voice, just that voice, that when processed through the male brain sounds more like music, which implies my capacity to follow you, the traction, is more difficult. It's because of the pitches. We have a whole bunch of them. Men have pretty much 3, 4. No wonder we associate deep voice with what? Authority and power. And no wonder we associate, hi, how are you, with? Absolutely. And Margaret Thatcher, one of the things she did when she started to consider running for office was to do what? Anybody knows? She took voice lessons because she sounded like this. And so she had to go to a place in which she needed to gradually get into that, not only deeper, but carry through. Go ahead.
Is it just men, or do women also perceive other women as music?
Well, the important thing is we have the capacity, because our brains work in a different way, to keep going. Because the music, the intonations are not a barrier for us to keep tracking. It's just our brain is working differently. So it's really in the context of men, women. That's one of the big findings from the female brain. She said, hey, be aware that there is, from the very beginning, there's a process that starts to work out, that if you're alert, you want to be able to say, what are the things that, is there anything I could do to bring this power back to me? And it could be tone of voice, speaking slower, and making it available to them to say, it might sound to you, or I have the impression you're not listening. Give me eye contact and let's pause. I want to go and buy my pair of shoes. Do you agree?
Is it then different in writing? When we express the arguments in writing, does it matter whether it comes from a woman or from a man then?
You know, that's one of the problems women in law have. Because when we have the perfect brief, it's pretty much a neutral thing. But then they say, great brief, yet I did not get my promotion as a partner because other things play out. And so that's a tricky thing. Be careful. Because you say, my report was phenomenal. But that's not going to get you the promotion. We're going to get there. Okay? Yes?
It's been proven, though, that if the brief has a woman's name versus a man's
I was going to say that.
the woman's name usually...
There's more suspicious.
That's why Americans don't put any gender on some...
So here's what's happening. Let me digress. It's going to come up. Here's what's happening, what we're doing, especially when we hire. We're doing what we call blind profiles. There's a beautiful story, one of the many research that's done in Stanford again, of orchestras in the US. And what they said is, how come we have so few women if we have so many good musicians graduating. And said, there's something wrong. And so what they did is they had blinded auditions behind curtains. No shoes, because we have the heels, right? Hey, clank, clank. No shoes and no face. What do you think happened in terms of percentage in orchestra in the US? They were in 12%. Went up to 32 and counting. Because here's what happened. They allowed themselves to listen to the exquisite music. Whoever played it got the job. Bingo, there she is. Right? So that's what we're doing because, like I said before, the name, and there's so much research right now showing, unfortunately, men and women give higher credence and credibility to men just from the get-go. But we do that because we do it since we're tiny. We're exposed to that. That's what I want you to be aware. It's not men come out meaning to do anything, nor women are, especially the women who evaluate other women, are coming out to be mean and difficult. They're behaving in a social context. And that's why we need, especially when we're managers, to self-assess and manage those biases. They get in the way of hiring good talent. I can let it go. I can let her go, or not fight for her. So we need to understand the audience, and if most are men, I need to start to understand, should I regulate my voice a little bit more? Should I speak more slowly? Do I really make sure that he's giving me his full attention? If you're saying to him something in passing, or you sit there and you told him, but you don't ask for, are we connecting? Most likely you're not going to get, yeah. No. Come here. Do we agree? Okay. You circle back. Develop platform skills, again, a voice coach. For many women, it's been transformative. Just the fact that they can walk into the room. I had a wonderful woman, Canadian, actually GSK, and she spoke too fast and with too much intensity. And she was losing every opportunity. She overwhelms the audience. And so that's what we did. I put her together with a voice coach, and her life changed. Right now, she's in the promotion she wanted in, I think, Milwaukee. She went to following Walgreens. How many of you have learned active listening? If nothing else, apply it. So, body language, eye to eye, say it, and then let me hear what you think I said. That's where you get the person, if you're closing that loop. So repeat, what do you think I meant, or what did I say? Boom, and then you clarify. The moment the person has to zoom into repeating it to you, you bring that person right back. Okay? Have any of you used active listening and seen the results? Yes, Christina.
Yes, well, active listening is just a fantastic technique, and not just a technique, it's a way of living from a certain point on, particularly when you live in a different culture. Like for me, coming from Romania, living in the Czech Republic for the last 10 years, I did hit a few cultural barriers, and once I learned to work in this way, it made my life so much easier.
It just sort of breaks the barriers. Okay, because if you can't have, it's a beautiful thing, because then when the person repeats back to you, then you catch the person in terms of what would be the miscommunication and say, no, I meant this. Oh, well. And then we move forward, right? Active listening is extremely powerful. Now, there's something about what we call weak vocabulary, and it's associated with being heard or not heard. I'm sorry. Women who go to training with me, going through rehab camp, I'm sorry it's not allowed. Because I keep asking them, what are you sorry about? Think about the times in which you say, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry. The moment you say that, power goes down to you and to the audience. Great job. It was nothing. No, it wasn't nothing. It was fantastic. You have a great report. We're going to talk about now self-promotion shortly. So thank you is more than enough. You look great today. Don't say, oh, this is nothing. I bought it. I like it too. Thanks. Nothing wrong with that, right? That's why I'm wearing it. There is a wonderful book. And by the way, people who've been in my training before know, when you're done with this hour, you're going to get a whole bunch. It's called The Confidence Code. You want to make sure you read it this weekend. Because what they've done is they've archived exactly what I'm saying, but in the context of there's two women who are, by the way, one is the anchor woman for BBC and the other one is a reporter for NBC. And they wrote a book before this one, but this is my favorite one. Here's what they did. They said, I keep interviewing very powerful women. And then shortly after we get to talk to each other, this thing about I've been lucky, it's been good chance, I had some help, creeps in. And we started to say, so where does that come from? Why is it that women from different parts of the world, this thing about almost as if their success is attributable to fate and not to their own work. So they went in and they started to do this research and they said, confidence. And so read the book because it's going to allow you to go into that vocabulary rehab by which you're going to catch yourself saying, why do I have to? Don't, because you're giving power away, okay? Yes?
It's not only vocabulary, though, it's tone.
Go ahead.
So my point is it's not just what you say, but it's how you say it. Right. You know, so quite often, and this is my label for it, women will whine about something as opposed to just stating it as a fact. And that whining, not only for me is like nails on a chalkboard, but my male colleagues, they want you to come in and state your point, don't whine about it. And so I think having the right tone of voice at the right level, and if you sound like Mickey Mouse and you're whining, they're not listening. I mean, they really have shut off, and quite honestly, so have I. So I think as women, we need to be very measured in how we present in order to make sure that the point is clear and remove as much noise from your message as you can. And in the US, accents is another thing, right? So if I'm somebody with a very strong Southern accent speaking to somebody from the North, yeah, and I can't do a Southern accent very well, but or vice versa, it really interferes with the message. And so I think really understanding that and considering voice coach and practice and videotaping and recording yourself and listening to how you sound is actually quite a good thing to do. And it's not as hard to change as one would think.
My case, I'll never get rid of my accent. And I've worked in the US perfectly well. But here's what I've done. I've learned to play with my voice, and I tempo my voice so that I don't lose anyone. Because I don't want to lose my accent. It's what part of my brand. I want you to know when I call you that it's me immediately. It saves us time. If it goes away, I become someone else. I don't want that. And in the US, for instance, in some parts of the US, this thing about the accent is a very good point. It's very strong. The way I solve it, typically, is like, oh, you've got an accent. And I said, so do you. Where are you from? Because in the US, it's a funny thing, but you have accents in all the different states. You know, the East, New England, California, the South. So if you get caught in this stuff and you don't understand how to own it, then you feel weak, not powerful, right? Does it make sense? Any questions so far? Is this making sense so far? Yes? Go ahead.
Victoria Jonas, Back Office, European Commission. I think I can add and relate to this topic very much because we have 28 member states in the telecommunications field where I work with. And yes, it's true. I can see the impact of accent because in Europe, apart from British people, everybody has an accent. And yeah, too, but they are considered to be the standard English. And we are the ones that actually learn the language. So that has another impact on negotiations as well. So it's completely true, and I can relate very much to this topic, saying that if you are clear and you can reduce your accent to not to be detectable, which country you represent, that's a great plus.
Well, I could never work in your commission thing. But I can understand what you mean. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. We just talked this morning about it. Let's not try to continue to erode the differences, and let's enjoy that which makes us unique. And one of the things I say, and this is, I mean, I did it. It's like the accent. This is a good idea. I just decided not to get rid of it. And because for me, the consequences were I'm going to give away part of who I am. So it's a question of choice, right? But I can understand what you're saying. Absolutely.
I see your point, but on the other hand, some people have really strong accent, and it's difficult to understand that. And instead of becoming a really good friend,
yes,
it can hinder actually the negotiation.
Absolutely, because yeah, absolutely, and so that's why we said, and that's a very good point. We need to understand the audience, right? And if my accent is one by which it's very difficult for me to communicate outside of my culture, and I want to be an international diplomat, I have to do something about it. Absolutely. So another thing that happens is, and we know why now, our capacity, our expertise, our competence is second-guessed. Women signal problems, and she's perceived as overreacting, taking things too seriously, and getting things more complicated than they are. Agreed or not? Have people told you that? Or are you getting it all complicated?
I think that's because we bury the lead. So, you know, I think,
Sorry, say the first one.
yeah, so I said this is because we bury the lead, right? So we start talking about the bigger thing as opposed to saying, this is the problem, here's why I think we have the problem, and this is what we can do about it. We spend too much time talking around the issue. And so for men, it's all the detail that gives them the sense that there's more there than you really are trying to communicate. So if you bring the problem to the front and then give them as much sort of supporting information as they need to understand it, that helps with this?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
I would just like to react to that. That's why I guess that so many women with a journalistic background or training have a pretty good destiny in terms of leadership, because they are used to actually bring up the news first.
They're stealing the information, right? They steal the information. That's absolutely correct. Results at social expectations. Women have a propensity to be gauged as more emotional. Tendency of people, men and women, to fall into groupthink. So when we're thinking of expertise, and we're in this place together, and we're all, let's say, just men, so we sort of know for sure who's competent and who knows what. And so and we continue to do that as a group. When you have a new, fresh voice, if you're not aware or alert of what's going on, especially if it's a woman, inevitably you're going to be pushed out in terms of your capacity, or at least the impression of competence. Women lack political capital to support them. And here, this is what it means. How many of you have mentors at work? Let me see hands again. How many of you have sponsors at work? Aha, okay. being heard, getting promoted, having a place in the table is about competency, check. And by the way, 40%, 30%, 45%, depends on the organization. The rest is about what are you known for, and I'm just going to get into that shortly. Who knows you? I'm going to get into that. And who's behind you? See, your competency is immediately validated in the following way. I'm not sure if she's ready for it. And then he's walking, or she is going to say, who are you talking? Oh, I'm talking about Sarah Jane. You're kidding me? She's great. She is. I'm also, and that person becomes the voice, or the people become the voice to have that dialogue, to enhance your capacity to have that political capital. So we're going to get into that, but networking and having people that know you important. But having your mentors and then sponsors. What's the difference between a mentor and a sponsor? How many of you have mentors again? Okay, so a mentor is someone who has a relationship with you. It could be for life, or it could be for a fixed amount of time, that he or she is sort of helping you, shepherd you through a process. And it can be set together in many different ways. I'm just going to get into it in more detail shortly. A sponsor is someone who's going to be committed to your success in the organization. He's the person who's going to be asking, is she in the list? I'll give you an example. In the world of IMPO, I know at least two, her and then the woman, Kim Massa, who's the champion of the process, who's always asking top management, how many women do we have here, and do you know who they are? They are sponsors of the women, not just mentors. They're behind the closed doors saying, no, 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 no. She's great. She is capable. I know because I work with her. Okay? Very important. This whole thing about political power is extremely important. And a lot of women are adverse at political power because we were told it's not a female thing to do. And that's one of the things we need to overcome, for it's actually a very low pay to have that type of behavior. It's been shown, for example, that both men and women attributes for success more than to luck and women to luck and men to their abilities. Women also receive fewer rewards by sharing opinions and taking leadership roles. One study showed that a female fellowship applicant had to be 2.5 more productive than the average male applicant to be deemed equally competent. Right? And again, there's a lot of research showing that there's that propensity. It doesn't mean that we don't have a recourse to have a level playing field. When we know this, we know what we can do. Now we know, oh, not really. So is this what I need to do? Oh, that's doable. Management needs to be fully engaged in reminding everyone that they need to pay attention to contributions made by peers and team members, and to be alert. I don't know how many of you heard the story of Brooklyn Bourne. You know who she is, Brooklyn Bourne? There was this woman during the Clinton administration. I'm going to make it very short. You should see her 1 hour, 60 minutes. It's on YouTube. And she said, there's going to be a financial meltdown. You're overreacting. You're being too emotional. Everybody was looking at her. Everybody meant Summers, Rubin, and the former Secretary of Treasury, what was his name, the young one? Geithner. So she was taking on these three guys. Greenspan. And long story short, they shut her out, got her off, closed her department. And what happened? Was there a financial meltdown? So it's really important for us to know there are consequences for ignoring competency. because it's walking through the door with a different rap. Go ahead.
Elizabeth, did something change as a result of this?
Of what?
That she predicted it, the department was closed down.
And there was a meltdown.
Yeah, and that something did the White House.
Has anything changed now? Yeah. Well, you tell me, has anything, is there any new regulations going on? Just a little bit in the US, right? But that's not the point. What I want us to know as managers is, should I not have her, and there's just, again, one of the guys to say, I was so wrong. I should have listened. She was absolutely on the money. But I followed the rest of the group who said, too abrasive, and so I'm going to follow that wagon. I should have stopped and asked her more and then aligned with her. Groupthink, they went this way. So it's right now, it's, you know, the financial regulations are there. But that's the story is, she said it. And he was there ahead of time. Women need to understand the importance of networking and mentoring. We're going to get into that. How many of you regularly network in your company? Hands up. Daniela, what do you do? She's
walking through company and talking to many people on various topics regularly. And I solve many of my problems on the way, and I get to know new information on the way too.
So it's working for you?
Yes, basically I'm not lazy and I don't send email and I go personally and ask, and it's working very well.
It's working for you. Was that something you used to do before we had all the training and stuff?
Well, your training made me different, definitely, so it's hard to measure now.
Wow, that's loaded. I wasn't, whoa, that's a very, so here's what I'm suggesting here. We have, and I'll get into it, we have a propensity to disregard networking and mentoring. And again, unless people know me by first and last name, there's anonymity. And anonymity is not really conducive to promotability. Anonymity is not conducive to promotability. Your work will disappear in ether, okay? Need to remember the importance of presence. So part of what presence branding and self-promotion go hand in hand. What's presence? What's presence?
Be here.
Be here?
So full of mind. All my personality needs to be here and needs to be, let's say, involved in the process.
Okay, be here. What else? Impact? Like what?
Impact. You have an impact. You make an impression.
I make an impression?
Yes.
Like what?
People remember you. Positive, obviously.
Well, unless you screw it up and
yeah.
forever, too.
But hopefully
right?
a positive impact. Yeah, you have presence.
Sorry, so impact and presence. What else?
Actually, being remembered. I remember in my company, Česká sportovna, it's a huge company, and I'm a member of different sport clubs, like ski team, bike team, running team, and I'm pretty good in running. So people remember me when I participate in a race, so they know, okay, Blanca, she's good at that.
Runner.
Yeah, and I also connect people
through running
and sports. It's good.
Perfect.
Being visible.
Being visible. And all of it. Yeah.
I said it.
What
to be heard.
Be heard. So there's this wonderful video. It's the most watched video in YouTube, and her name is Brady. And her thing, she's in Harvard, and her thing was, let me figure out this thing about power and presence, just on the physiological aspect. No voice. What's going on here? And she said, oh my God, the power of your entrance, of what you wear, of the consistency of what you wear and how you wear it, the externality. When you think of Volvo, what comes to mind? Volvo. So what we want to make sure is that when they think of you, that tagline comes up. That is branding and presence so wrapped up in one. And so Brady said, here's what I found that's really cool. I'm sorry, I have to do this.
Doing research for my project, I looked at blind people's behavior and how they associated power. And blind people, when they think of power, think of this. What makes you feel powerful? This one, expansion. You think about it. Now you watch some photographs now. Typically when people feel like me, right? What happens, she said, oh, when we do this, we're sending the brain a message that makes me feel definitely a high degree of empowerment. It's a chemical effect, and you can listen to her explain it beautifully. Trust me, listen. So it's interesting that something as simple as just my body language, the way I choose to use my body, can enhance my capacity to have a favorable person. Just think about it. Look at this. Yeah. Repeat the name. Brady, B-R-A-D-D-Y. She's phenomenal. And actually her story is she was very shy.
The other one. She was a very shy woman. Her story is phenomenal, so you can see her in YouTube. Does that make sense? So presence is important. And there are many, many ways for you to really think through. We have a module, for instance, in my work, I do a module on presence. And so we think it through and we really get to understand what that means for us. True or false?
I just wanted to share. Should I stand up? My name is Michelle Stanton, and I'm from INPO. And I have been working with Lisbeth for a little over a year, probably about a year and a half now. But presence, how you show up, how people see you, perceive you. But I wanted to also share about the networking. I had a group of mentors at INPO in top leadership for many years. And those mentors left INPO, all of them. They are either out on reverse loan, they've retired, they're no longer at INPO. So I did not have my board. And I was in a session with Lisbeth, one of the one-on-one coaching sessions with her, and she was asking about my board. I didn't have a board. They had all left. And she pointed out the importance of me having a board, my mentors, my sponsors at the place where I was currently working, where I thought I didn't need it because I had them, they left, okay, I'm still here, my name is still known at the Institute, but I didn't have my board behind me. So my name wasn't being heard where it needed to be heard. I thank you.
What happened?
I got my board back.
Is it working for you?
It is absolutely working for me. So performance-wise, having a board encourages me, it builds my self-confidence, and it gives me the will, the power to go to my executive and let them know, I would like to be at the International Forum for Professional Women. And here I am at the International Forum for Professional Women because I asked. Without...
They say I do things, it's you do the work. You do the work, right? This one is critical. How many of you have problems delegating? Only one? Ha! That's what you think. But she does, but here, two? Or are you trying to say something to me? The hand is delegating, or?
Yes, I have a problem
with delegating.
That's one point. The other one is John is just...
All right. You have problems delegating. So delegating, and here's why, it's absolutely critical. And most of you have a problem. I have had a tremendous problem for many years, and it's starting to be so fun to say, is it really finished, ready? And he says yes, or she, but mostly Tyler. And I take a deep breath and I said, and I'm going to walk away from it. I'm not going to go back. And it works. But anyway, here's why delegating for women is, for everyone, but women in particular. Fear of failure. So here's the deal. Women receive a higher degree of sanctions when things go wrong than men. And for the men in the room, you're saying, this is male batching 101. Actually, I've been light with the data. But let me, you need to learn this for you to say, let me look for more and understand where it's coming from. We have this thing with perfection. How many of you feel that you have to have perfect work? Oh, you're smiling because you don't, and you want to go like this. And the perfection thing, here's where it comes from. When we were girls, we were pretty much gratified and given the star for our neatness and our perfect either calligraphy or desk. We associate perfection with a positive attribute in terms of attention and reward. Little do we know that it's a big trap, because it doesn't exist. And what it does, it keeps us behind hoarding work and behind a place that's not going to be sustainable in the induced environment. She feels that she needs to show commitment. So I'm going to do all this to show you how committed I am to be a 24/7 employee. She needs to show she can take a lot of work. I remember someone in this room who had this syndrome, and she would say yes to work all the time. And what happened?
Well, after I woke up and realized that I was heavily overworked and underappreciated, Elizabeth taught me the most freeing word in the world, which is no. No. And sometimes you don't actually say the word no, but they get the point. Sometimes it's after they leave the meeting that they realize the work that they had tried to assign to me, really, they agreed to do in the end. But it's a different way of saying no and just reframing the thought process about what are you really there to do? What can you do that's going to make the biggest contribution to the organization? And who can you delegate some things to really focus on those missions and those values? So.
High priority. Amy came one day in one of our sessions and she said, I can't do this anymore. And we were asking, it was a group of us. And she said, I just keep taking more work. And the lack of capacity to say no. And then we say, well, no, you have to say no that way. You can say, so what would you like me to let go to take this on? How soon? Because I have these other 3 things in my hands. Are you sure it's me? It shouldn't be maybe Jane. I'm really stretched, and the quality of the work will not be there. I really need to pass now, unless you really feel that's what I need to do and let go of something else. I remember seeing her in our next session, and she was like coming in all, really cocky. And she said, oh my God, I'm saying no. It was like she went to rehab. But it was liberating because she was swamped. And I'm sure many of you are swamped because you're not farming it out. Here's the beauty of delegation. Time for planning. Many of you are in a position in which most likely you want to be considered for the next thing. Hey, if you don't have time to think of vision and planning and forecasting and strategic thinking, you're in trouble because the higher you go, the more you think, the less you do. Allowing time for organizing. So you can really allocate time in a more efficient way and leverage talent in a more efficient way. It allows time for non-organizational pursuits that are very important for you in the community. That's also about work, but in a different way. It teaches valuable lessons on how to work, and you develop other people. That's my golden one. That's the golden nugget. When I delegate, and I teach you how to do something, it's gold. There's redundancy. You learn the way it's done the right way. I can walk away. If I need to be away from the office, what happens? You'll take over it. And you will feel so engaged in this interaction because you're going to say, she cares about me. She wants to teach me and teach me the right way. That's a win-win, for God's sake. How can we not want to delegate and let it go? And there's this thing about, no, but they don't know how to do it. Well, we don't know how to teach them. Because if they're working with us, they had to be qualified to be part of our organization. So it's really on me to teach them. And teach them again. And give yourself a third try. And it will be fine. And they will learn. They're not dumb. Delegation builds trust. When I bring you with me, and I say, hey, let me farm out this with you, so you learn this thing, and you become really strong at this part of work. You're also saying to me, oh my God, thank you so much. You're opening my eyes. I can trust you and follow you. And not only that, when I ask you for something, I'm drowning, can you help me? You most likely will say what? Of course. I give you a hand too. Enables the leader to multiply him or herself. That's called redundancy. And unless we have redundancy, we have nothing. I want you to know something. If you're the type of person that if you're gone, the world dies on you, you should be fired. Sorry, I'm being drastic. Because redundancy is paramount in an environment that is so fast. If people can understand what you're doing, if you don't have at least one chair, in law is a second chair, that allows to have some idea what you do, and it's all in here, would you want to fire the person? Because what happens here is, if you're gone, it's all gone. Go ahead.
But isn't that contrary to the past norm? Because what I find is I do some of this, and I find myself hitting my head against a brick wall, which is certain leaders, where they don't understand how I do what I do. How come you're doing so much? How do you manage your time? And I'm almost now getting criticized because I do delegate effectively, and they don't get it. So I actually totally agree with what you're saying, but I think that is something that is not yet in the organization. It's not yet accepted. I'm a lawyer. Lawyers are breathe off by themselves. That's what I did for 4 years, and I said, that's not for me. Because it's so dysfunctional in so many ways. Yeah.
That's another
yeah, so the law department is its own.
The law department is special.
Yes, it is.
It is.
In the worst way, yeah.
Just to share my story on delegating, and I took over 1.5 years ago leadership in the company about call center. I knew nothing about call center, and I just took over like 150 people from the telecom company, and another 100 in Ostrava, and I was the only one who knew nothing because they all knew, and I had to build my team around me, HR, controlling, KPIs management, whatever it is. And I thought, I cannot manage this because I don't understand it. So I started to get surrounded by people, and I started to manage them. 1 year after, I did a session and I asked them, what did change? What did we do well and what did we do badly? The thing struck me was they said, you came and you brought us into the process. You gave it to us. We never experienced so much of information about what's going on, so much of responsibility. and so much of empowerment, and this is, and fun, by the way. It's a lot of fun with them. And I was like, wow, this was what I wanted. And I was like, I was nearly to tears, like, oh, this is unconsciously, I managed that. And I didn't know how I did it, but I was desperate, not knowing. And that was amazing. And I'm still not good in delegating enough, right? But I have a bunch of people around me which really enjoy working with me. And I know some of them will be over me in some time. And this is fantastic. So in being in desperate place, it's working.
So even in extreme moments. Communication, right? So again, delegation, it's a golden nugget. We do have sessions on delegation. So tips, and let me put them all out there. Knowledge transfer. Men and women need to know. You can't walk away with the information. Someone has to capture it. It's not yours, it belongs to the organization. Redundancy. Provide environment that will help everyone know that failure is and can be a source of success. Buffett. I think, he's back into, no, he's the second wealthiest, I think, man in the world. His quote, success only comes from failure. I used that in my class. And so he's like so happy with failure because he's like, it's coming to offer good outcomes. Perfection is an illusion. And help women understand that doing is a tactical process. Again, the more you hoard work and the more you think that you're showing that you have commitment by doing a lot of hours, putting in a lot of hours, and not looking at outcomes, high payoff, you're putting yourself in a place in which you will be plateaued. Your promotability will be in jeopardy. So it's not networking, it's strategic networking. What's that? What's strategic networking?
Well, instead of just collecting business cards and have a nice stack, is being able to follow up and then, meet with the people and develop a real relationship so you can ask for support when needed. I'm guessing.
Bingo. Not only that, is asking for support, but here, now you're getting part of the theme, also for people to know who I am. Right? The distinction of who I am, of what I do, and how I do it. It has to be done through people. And so strategic networking is about understanding who are the people who are going to be strategically important in my next 3, 4, 5 years progression of the organization. And the one thing I need to know is, do they know me? Do they know me by first and last name? Do they know the type of work I do by first and last name? You have no idea of how many times I go into an intake in the organizations and the men, typically men, say to me, she's not networked. So my peers don't know her, and I need to promote her. She's great, but she just works hard, and she doesn't also understand the dimension of being known by other people. The other day, and the reason why we were talking about this one woman, she has this job. The other day, we were in the short list, and everybody was going to go with somebody else. And I said, she's great. And I said, but I don't know her. I don't know her. Of the 3, only one did, this one man who was sharing the story. And he said, tell her she needs to get out of that office. Purposefully, to get to know people who have influence in her career. Strategic networking, people who have influence in my career. Do I have those names in a short list on top of my desk so that I can find a way to reach out and get to know them? One of the things that is also very important is that women have a propensity not to seek networking because for some there might be an appearance of I'm being too pushy, too ambitious. And the word ambition for women also is a bit of a problem. True or false? It's starting to get a little bit more comfortable for us, but to articulate what I want and how I want it, and I want to be there and do that, is still a little bit of a problem for us. So we shy in our networking experiences to say, so what do you want next? And most typically women say, well, whatever they give me, I'll be fine with it. And that's exactly what you're going to get. Except if you know what you want, and when they ask you what you want, you say, I really would like to be able to, and then you fill in the blank, right? Makes a world of difference. I had a woman, and I was coaching her, and I said to her, Anne, what do you want? And she said, what do you mean? She's an engineer. What do you want? And she said, they've always given me a job, and I've been very happy here. So however they want me to go next, and said, no, you're in this program because you're high potential. They want to put you in another place, and they're going to expect from you, what do you want? So here's your homework. What do you want? Write it down, think about it, because it's going to come up. One day, you're going to have your CEO walk down the hallway and say, hey, Ann, what's going on? What do you want? You want to be able to tell him. So she was asked to go to this meeting on a weekend, on a Sunday, and she was preparing coffee, and who walks into the kitchen? The CEO. And what did the CEO ask Anne? What do you want? And she answered, and then she said, she must be a witch. I'm not a witch. I just knew. She called me and said, you're a witch. And I said, no, I'm not a witch. I'm old. I just know enough to know that that's what people need to know about you. Do you want it? How much do you want? But where do you want to go? Because the moment I know you know where you want to go, I'm going to endorse you because you are 100% engaged. I can put time and dedicate time on you. If she were to, at the level in which she was, golden moment lost. Ask me where she's now. But she might be. She might be the first woman. She's become the senior VP of their international efforts. And this woman she didn't even have a passport. And now she barely is home. And she's loving it because she allowed herself to dream and said, well, never done before, which was the thing. She was censoring herself. No. But that's what she wanted. She said, oh, I'm going to go for it. And so on and so forth. And she's doing just beautifully and loving it. She's very happy.
Elizabeth?
Yes.
I think this is potentially a really difficult area for women, and I think this can make all the difference because I think there is a tendency that women do for others and not necessarily for themselves. And so they may speak on behalf of others, promote others, sponsor others, but they don't necessarily articulate for themselves. So I had that question, what do you want? And I fumbled. I didn't know how to articulate that because I'm not used to thinking, what do I want? I know what my team wants. I know where I'm taking my team, So I totally agree with you. It's massive.
No, but it's not me. This is research. Yeah. This is really hard data that's showing. Actually, we negotiate like lionesses, like tigers, like sharks for anybody else. Watch us negotiate on behalf of a client. Watch us negotiate on behalf of anybody else. Watch us negotiate on our behalf. Right? And that's why we do this, because it doesn't have to be that way. Okay? And again, how many of you have thought that if you work hard, you're going to get your promotion? Here's what I want you to know today. If one thing you've learned today, left everything else, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Drop it here, leave it here. Promotions do not come just out of good work done. Period. You're in HR. You've been in HR, right? Right.
So, you know, when we're looking at promotions, we're not only looking at, I mean, being a good performer is the price of entry. But we're also looking beyond that, right? So how targeted and how focused is this person? Have they thought about where they want to go, how they can contribute differently? Are they actively pursuing that through either developing themselves, educating themselves, strategically networking? That's what we're looking at. You know, we're not just looking at, you know, how hard are you working?
Because leadership attributes are about many, many, many more things than just doing things. Right? It's about thinking and working with people and influencing processes and outcomes. Does that make sense? Any question? You want to keep on going or want to break? We're almost done. Do you want to break or do you want to keep on going? Keep on going? All right. Reframe the perception related to ambition and the ability to craft a plan for growth. You want a break? Oh, okay, so let's have a break, 5 minutes and come back. Go. When we're starting to network, one of the things I advise the people I work with is to be smart at starting to learn how to do it with a friend. So you start to learn how to do the icebreakers. So you don't start to network in the cold, right? You just really try to make sure that you feel comfortable and you have an introduction and that you know what you're going to do and how you will present yourself. Managers and leaders share stories on how people support you during a career path. So, you know, networking is really important because it's about transferring information about you. Sonia Sotomayor, the first female Hispanic judge in the U.S., has this quote in her book, and I stole it. She says, "Virtue in obscurity is rewarded only in heaven. To succeed in this world, you have to be known to people." So if you don't learn anything else, take that with you, okay? Now, mentoring, I'm going to go through mentoring fairly easy, rapidly, so that we can get into the two topics that are very important: self-promotion branding and the Dragon Lady. So we typically don't seek mentors. We think we can be without mentors. It's the second most important factor after education in professional success, and lack of awareness of its importance derail women, period, end of the story. Mentoring is key for your professional growth. One of the things that happens in terms of seeking mentors is that we traditionally, if we think that the mentor that's right for us is a senior VP, we think he's too senior for us. And one of the things I'm here to tell you, because they've asked me to tell you this, is we're waiting to be asked. Most of the senior VPs say to me, I can go out and tell them, I'll be your mentor. Oh boy, but am I waiting for them to say, would you be my mentor? And so the worst thing that can happen is what? No. And in my world, no for now. Because then maybe I can come back or find somebody else. And the no could be, I'm just overloaded. But the asking might give him or her that impression that you care. And that's a plus plus. So promote mentoring programs if you're a manager. Identify what is the best option, a mentor, a steward, or a sponsor. They're all different. And educate senior management on the importance of mentoring. I've been in a project in which mentoring has been a steep climb because the group really doesn't understand the importance of mentoring. So there is it's a perception gap. Use mentors or guides to stretch assignments. What is a stretch assignment? By the way, this is important for you. What is a stretch assignment? It's an assignment that takes me out of my comfort zone, that allows me to showcase how good I am about certain things, about certain competencies, about certain methodologies. And unless I jump in and say, may I get into that project? People don't get to know that you have the capacity to do that. Stretch assignments are paramount for promotability. Women don't ask. And so one of the problems by which we don't ask is that we have a natural tendency for women to feel uncomfortable asking, right? We already know why. As little girls, we're supposed to be nice and share and not ask for more. Hard to ask for the self, they're really good on behalf of others. And there's a perception that negotiations is difficult. There was a survey done, one of many, and men perceive negotiations as a wrestling match, and women feel negotiations as going to the dentist. painful. So this issue gets in the way of women asking for promotions and fair pay. And here's what I have to tell you. Especially when you're asking for your promotion and at your entry, that first job. Unless you learn how to negotiate right, you're going to be promoted, and a percentage of your salary would be added to that base. You follow where I'm going? So if you started 33, 40% under, and then you realize in a couple of years, what? You're making that much, and I'm not? I had a scenario of a very executive woman, and what happened with her, she was brought from the outside, brought into the company to fix a group. She was all fired up. 3 weeks into the job, she finds this old memo with the compensation of the person who was there before her, and he was 35% higher. She went to HR and she said, "What's this?" And what do you think they told her? Well, you accept that salary. Her capacity to feel fully engaged deflated. She's gone. But it was the beginning of the story. Because it's not only substantial, it's paramount. It's basic. It's how are you valuing me? My sense of worth. And so unless I become aware that I need to set the bar high so it can continue higher, I'm going to leave a lot of money on the table. Wonderful books on negotiations, especially for women. The classic is Women Don't Ask by Linda Badcock. She's an expert in CMU and negotiations, but for women. So when I'm negotiating and want to learn a little bit more about negotiations and my capacity to negotiate is thinking about what do I want. You have to continue to think, what do you want? Get training. Get training on how to do it. Be alert for women who might be ready for a stretch assignment. This is for managers, and push them. I've had the joy to see men do that. A lot of men do that for high potential women, and they just flourish. And it's a win-win for the organization. When people feel competent negotiating, they develop a better sense of self-worth. There is a wonderful book about self-worth. I'm working on that for a program I'm going to be offering shortly. And it's such an important part of performance. That I have served value, and I can be in this room, right? And I belong here. Now, yes.
Assignments, women tend to want to say no because they're not ready.
That's a very good point. Go ahead. Yeah.
My point is on stretch assignments, this is one time you shouldn't say no. You know, a lot of women say, hey, I'm not ready for this, or this isn't the right time for me. Men typically figure out a way to get someone else to do it, usually a woman, but that's just me. But really be very thoughtful about turning down one of these stretch assignments because it'll have consequence for you.
Absolutely, and she's absolutely, well, that's a perfection syndrome. I'm not really ready for it. And here's, again, let me give you the story. Senior VP now, but here's what, she's been working in a bank, rotating, taking all type of lateral moves, because she wanted to be Senior VP of Marketing for the institution, a big bank in the US. And the opening comes up 5 years ago, and she's like, I think, but I don't think I'm ready for it. I really think I need 1 more year doing whatever. She's in the elevator, and she hears these 2 young men talking about the fact that they're going to throw their hat for that job. And she said, she walked out of the elevator and she said, oh, no, no, no. I have all these years. And she's like, well, I'm gonna go and ask for, maybe I should be considered for this job. So she went to her boss and she said, listen, I really want this job. What do I need to do? Come with me. He took her, and she's shaking, took her to the CEO's office, and he said to her, can you repeat yourself? And she said, I want to be Senior VP of PNC Bank. And they said, we were waiting for you to ask. And And so we're wrapping up branding, self-promotion, and the Dragon Lady. And again, they're non-gender issues, and this is really important. So self-promotion is about making sure people know of my work, first and last name. And branding is that people unequivocally understand what I stand for, who I am, and who shows up over and over again. Madeleine Albright is masterful. She uses brooches. And she sends a message with the brooch. And she even wrote a book about the brooches. And there's wonderful stories, but you never see her without one. And when she's without one, people say, "What's with that?" I said, "I'm shopping today. I'm off. So we have a tendency to go brandless and not to self-promote. And in general, women fail to understand the impact of self-branding and its correlation with promotion. Both concepts are for many difficult to embrace because it sounds like bragging, correct? So when you go into say, "How was that presentation this morning?" You could say what? Typically, what do we say?
It was okay.
It was okay. And then what else do we say? We were all in this together. Oh, we did it. True? Oh, that was nothing. It's not true. You worked for it for 2 weeks. And so the opportunity to just say thank you, it was brilliant. Or I really had a great time. Or, I learned a lot putting it together. But why do I feel happy about this? That's self-promotion. And that doesn't sound boastful. That's not full of yourself. That's describing the capacity you have. And here's the deal, unless you do that, how will they know? Unless the people are informed of the quality of your work and that it's not done because it's going to be taken away. Your boss will take it away. Your peer will take it away. Anybody will take it away because you're giving it away. Just like you get the doll away, you're giving it away. It is about developing a coherent plan. And again, there are coaches for branding, and you have them here in the Czech Republic. There are coaches that help you with self-promotion, because they're not the same, right? So branding is about my external and what do I represent and all that stuff. And then self-promotion is to make sure I have a dialogue that's going to be consistent and help me understand I'm going to say it's mine, right? Thank you for agreeing with me. When somebody else echoes what you said, right? And somebody else is just repeated what you just said. John, thank you for agreeing with me. Exactly what I just mentioned. And now let me finish that thought. Boom, right back to you. That's not being boastful, and that's not being full of yourself. That's bringing back power to you, right? And owning your work. You're not stealing, but don't give it away. You don't. Of all the strategies used by women, making their achievements known, listen to this, by ensuring their managers were aware of their accomplishment, seeking feedback and credit as appropriate, and asking for promotion when they felt it was deserved, was the one thing associated with compensation growth. So in other words, as I qualify the quality of work I do, and let you know, and let you know, and let you know, and the more consistent I am in doing that, the higher the capacity I have to earn more money. Does that make sense? Ask for a professional coach. And that, again, is you can have even a stylist that comes to tell you, hey, these are the colors that work for you. These are the colors that are not going to work for you. Don't go for that hairdo. Offer training on presence, branding, and self-promotion. Many companies do this now. It's a one-on-one in terms of onboarding. Take a look at role models and observe dress codes, use of time, connections, even the office. How does it look? Assess who you aspire to be and just check around. Learn. And I just don't want to finish without the last one. Who's the Dragon Lady? Who's the Dragon Lady?
That's from the movie.
Yeah.
Brother.
Yeah, brother. So do you have in your mind a Dragon Lady? Okay, so describe her to me.
In that position, you mean?
No, right, no, in your world, do you have a dragon lady in your mind?
Dragon lady. Dračici. Yes, basically.
Listen to this, a couple of things. One, this is a woman-woman thing, and two, when you see her, you run away. Because she's suspicious to you. Because she breaks all those perceptions you were taught and more. Go ahead.
Basically, some people were in the past, when I've been running the manager's position, talking not in such a full picture, but partially, talking about me like that. Because I was always driven to the goal, wanted to get the things done. Yes. I think I started to look at the world from the different point of view. Not only to be the target-driven, going forward just, there is a goal and I will get it, whatever happen. Maybe I'm getting old, more experienced, not so strong, looking more to the people around myself. And maybe I become to the point that I don't know everything in the world, and I should not know, because I'm not... Yeah, so I became on the consultancy business now, and I am working with this type of people mainly on the man position, I would say, not so much on the women side. Yeah, but I think it's not about the men or women. It's about the life experience and getting some, and I don't know the word in English now, pokora. Yeah, about the humbleness, about, yeah. So when I was young enough, I was more like that, getting, younger, getting older.
We know everything. Right?
Yeah.
And then with time, we eat out, it's called humble pie. We eat the pie, humble pie, right?
Yeah.
And we say, I don't know everything. And here's the beauty, and it's okay.
Yes.
It's okay.
And it's okay, yes.
It's okay?
Yes, and I feel more better now than before.
You don't look like a dragon lady to me. I'm kidding. For the women and for men in the room, dragon ladies typically are a byproduct of the culture they've been immersed in, right? That culture we talked about already. Difficult work, have you heard, right? That one. Has power and likes to show it, right? Has the ability to impact others and derail. So she really can cut your knees, right in your knees, if she wants to. If you are not really understanding where she comes from, and typically spend most of her professional life in the same organization, they capture a tremendous amount of political power. People know her. And unfortunately, many times they become afraid of her. Most of the time unaware that her behavior has adverse impact on others. So they're very lonely women. Because they're not liked by anyone. I met this one woman, I can mention in the company now, she's going to Canada many years ago, and she actually sponsored the program on behalf of women. She was a champion. But she had this thing about being a little bit over the top and abrasive. We were having a coffee break. CEO came over. She was in front of me with another of the facilitators, and he said, women have a bit of a problem when they've been in an organization for a long time and they acquire attributes that help them progress so far. But when they're going into the next level, they need to abandon behavior that's too aggressive, or they need to learn how to work and deal with teams and people. And that's a big shift in behavior. Who was he talking to? Her. She was asking for a promotion for that senior VP role. Did she get it? No. And she left. because it was almost, you know, that place in which we couldn't, there was no help for her. Typically, they need a coach. Not Dragon Ladies, they're almost uncoachable. They've really become set because they've been very successful. So it's like, what do you want me to change? I've been great. Look at me. I'm the VP. No, but you're creating a lot of disruption. No, it's just people don't know how to do things my way. And so if it's not my way, highway. They gotta go. Need a mentor. Typically a senior man. There was a beautiful case study in Harvard about a woman like a Dragon Lady, and through mentorship and coaching, the beautiful turnaround. It's a beautiful case study. Requires investment of time and commitment to shift that behavior. If you have a great performer and she looks like this, for managers in the room, you might be able to shift. There is something about either between age or telling her you're not that, you know, they're lonely and they become lonelier, and it's about rekindling relationships, okay? So we had to wrap it a little bit because we want to have a chance to laugh. Any questions before we conclude? Comments? Yes.
I just wanted to share one resource also on YouTube. Sheryl Sandberg sat down with the CEO of Salesforce, who was implementing Lean In at his company, and he said some really insightful things about what he learned from Lean In and what he was doing differently, and I think it can be very helpful to share with male leaders. For example, when he was asking for comments about a woman manager, and he got the kind of things like she's aggressive, she's bossy, he challenged them and said, well, say specifically why. And so he wasn't making an effort to change that behavior. So that video might help some of you with your male leaders in your organization have an aha moment.
Out there slow. Go ahead. And then we'll wrap up.
No, I'm sorry, I actually forgot to introduce myself the first time I spoke this morning. Peter Smitsky from the Prague Water Management Company. But actually, I'll speak for a few men that are in this room. Well, hopefully, they will not take that against me. I have a feeling that lots of you have already heard that, or most of you, or obviously, even I have learned something new for myself. I'm not going to tell you what, but I'm going to take something back with me. But predominantly, I think that you've done a great job reaffirming to yourself that, you know, you need to do something, what you need to do something. But for the men, I would say we up there who are sitting in our positions of power, and some of us don't see a reason to change anything because has been doing well. So you want to come and join us, that's fine. So we should also have a message from you what we should do for you to make the whole thing work. Because if you don't do that, why should we want to change something if we think we're doing just dandy? For the ones that maybe our companies are not performing that well, then we might say, okay, what have we tried and hasn't worked? We might try something else, which we haven't tried. What about gender diversity? But then you have to sort of, or we would like to know, we would like to really be sure that if we go into that, it is really to, you know, do something. I think we have intuitionally, we're on the process of saying it could work, but we need more hard evidence. So I think this calls for more of a cooperation. And by just numbers in this room, there's room for improvement in that way as well. I don't think it's just that we haven't invited more men as the organizers or supporters of this conference. I think it's also up to you, ladies, that you should take your male partners from your company, or either, you know, from all levels of management, because the less senior people will one day maybe be senior. So they should know about that as well. That's my remark to this conference.
Thank you, Peter. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you had a chance to... He's saying something to you. This is working. Now? Are you happy? thank you for being here. We're going to close now with laughter. John is coming in, and he's going to make us laugh for 15, 20 minutes, and then off we go to refresh. And tonight we have a wine and whatever else event. It's a networking event.